In today's photo deconstruction, I'm going to show you a dramatic and unexpected twist on clamshell lighting. Hey everybody, Lindsay Adler here. When I think of clamshell lighting, I usually think of something that is glowing and high key. Now, if you've never heard of clamshell lighting before, it means that there is a main light, usually centered on the subject, it doesn't have to be, main light illuminating the subject's face, and then some sort of fill from below. This could be a reflector, but very often it is another light source, like a strip softbox. Typically, this is used for portrait photography, beauty photography, and it creates a very glowing result, especially when there's a lot of fill light underneath the subject's face. Today, I want to show you how I use clamshell light in a much more dramatic implementation. All right, so this is the final image, and you can see that the light on her face is sculpted. There's a lot of deep, dark shadows, and that is very opposite of what I said I usually think of for clamshell lighting. So let's actually take a look behind the scenes, and I'm going to build this in one by one. Now, by the way, you can see that there's a photographer here shooting. This is actually a setup that we did during one of my small group workshops. I have many different intensive workshops that range from groups of 6 people to 12, 20. It depends on what class you take. And the topics are wide-ranging. It's fashion photography, it's advanced lighting, it's skin. And so if you want to see the types of workshops that I have that are hands-on for you to learn, to see in person, and to get to shoot, be sure to check out the links in the description below because I have a lot of workshops coming up. All right, so taking a look at the behind the scenes here, you can see above and centered on the subject's face is the main light. This is a Photo D2, but the most important part of this is I have a 5-degree grid. The 5-degree grid really concentrates the light into just a narrow area of illumination. So when you pop back over and look at the subject's face, the main light is really just lighting her face and a tiny bit onto her neck, but it is a super concentrated and limited light. And because of that, I need to add some sort of fill. And so this is where the clamshell comes into play. You can see front and center, in front and below the subject's face is another light with a strip softbox. It's a 1x4 foot strip softbox with a grid. And so this is what is giving me the illumination on the shadow areas of the hair, on her skin, like it is lifting up the shadows. It is very different than most high-key clamshell shots because it's not glowing and it hasn't eliminated the shadows, but instead just given us enough to have some detail there. Now, the strip softbox that I'm using here, I'm using on a floor stand. And so that floor stand keeps it low so that I have a free area to shoot. So we have our main light, 5-degree grid, concentrate on her face. We have the strip softbox with the grid below, filling in some of the shadows. So there's just a little bit of detail, but the last light is super important. It's hidden back behind the subject on another floor stand, and that is a bare strobe with an ND gel. Now, let me just show you what this looks like. If you go back over to the final image, that glow lower on the frame, and then it fades up to shadow, that is because we pointed the light low. Now, a couple of things. The pointing the light low is what gives you that nice gradient, which makes the background a little bit more interesting. But without that background light, the subject would completely blend into the background. There would be no separation, particularly where she has this darker shirt on that would completely blend in. And so it becomes really important for giving some separation, making the photo a little bit more precise. But there's something important that I want you to recognize. Notice I've got the D2 as the main light, the D2 as a fill, but for this background light, I was using a D1. That was because I was doing a workshop and I had many sets going on, and so I grabbed one of my D1s because the other ones were busy. Because of that, I had to add an ND gel. ND gel stands for neutral density gel. Now, you may have heard of ND for your lens, putting it on your camera. It darkens everything down. It's kind of like sunglasses for your lens. In this case, ND gels allow you to darken your light, and you can get 1 stop, half stop, quarter stop. Here I'm using a 1-stop gel, which means it takes the light and it makes it half as bright, half as powerful. The reason this is so important is that the D2s that I'm using as the main light and fill light, they allow a ton of variability in output. I can turn them up really high or down really low. And when I had them set, the D1 on the background without the ND gel was just too bright. I had to add its lowest power and the background was just still too bright and distracting. So adding the ND gel made it half as powerful. If I took the 1-stop and I folded it in half, it actually makes it 2 stops darker. So it's a quarter as powerful. So I use those often if I want to shoot at a narrow depth of field or when I'm shooting at low power and need to mix and match Photo D1s and D2s or B10s, B10 pluses, D2s. My D2s that I'm using here for these strobes are 1000 watt and the Photo D1 on the background is a 500 watt second strobe. Okay, so now that you've seen the lighting, definitely an unusual twist on clamshell light. Now let's pop over and take a look at what was captured in camera versus what was achieved in post-processing. This final image is very polished. It's very clean. Her skin looks really beautiful, but we're using a very hard light on her face. A 5-degree grid, when you use a hard light like that, it usually shows any texture, any blemishes, and that's why a lot of times for headshots or regular portraits, many photographers shy away from hard light. However, I want to show you that, especially for fashion photography, and especially with models with good skin and nice hair and makeup, or if you're willing to do retouching, hard light, it can look really nice in camera. So this is what I got to for the final result. Here's what was captured in camera. So I'm just going to zoom in for a minute, and I want to show you her skin with that hard light. I mean, yes, there are some textures, but she has beautiful skin. The makeup looks great. And so hard light isn't ruining the skin. I just want to show you what it looks like once we retouched. I mean, there were some improvements, but it was really, really quite subtle. All right, so let's actually back out so you can see. So this is what I captured in camera. I thought that white balance-wise, it looked a little too green. I'll often take a picture of a color checker because that helps give me a neutral point to start with to get the right white balance. What I ended up doing in RAW, so this was while I'm shooting into Capture One, I'm tweaking. I made things a little warmer. I added a little magenta, a little bit red. I thought that was better on her skin tone. It also make her hair look a little glowier. So now let's see what the actual Photoshop part of it was. Because you notice it was hardly any on the skin. I think a majority, which you can see here, was the hair. So over here on the right-hand side, where we got rid of kind of those frayed edges, I selected that. That was Photoshop's generative fill. Generative fill is a godsend when it comes to hair. There are a lot of times that Photoshop's generative fill doesn't do a great job. It doesn't do a great job with really, so far, maybe in the future it'll get better, but it doesn't do great with really dramatic backgrounds, like if you're trying to create a background out of nothing, or if you're trying to take something that doesn't exist in the photo, like if I wanted to put flowers in her hair and I would select and add flowers, that might not work. But cleaning up edges of hair, it does so well. So all I did is select kind of the ratty, rough area. I hit generate and I did not give it a prompt and it cleaned it up like that for me. Other things that you'll see in the post-processing is I brought out some additional shine in her hair. So you can kind of see that in the before-after. And then I liquefied to make the hair just a little bit fuller. So from where we started to where we ended up, it's basically color and a little bit of improvement in the hair. So my point is, sometimes even when using hard light, you can get the image to look really close in camera. Hard light is not something that always requires a lot of Photoshop or a lot of cleanup on the skin. So I hope you've enjoyed a little behind the scenes look at a creative take on clamshell lighting. You can use any combination of modifiers for clamshell. We just happen to usually think of it as, you know, soft main, soft fill, nice and glowy, but you could use 2 bare bulbs to create clamshell, or you could use an unusual modifier like an optical spot with a strip softbox as fill. Like there's any number of combinations and each one has different characteristics. In this case, the hard light is what gives her that beautiful glow on her skin and those really dramatic carving of her cheekbones. So sometimes hard light clamshell, for me, can give a lot of impact and still be relatively flattering on the skin. Now, if you'd like to attend one of my workshops and have hands-on opportunities to shoot looks just like this one, be sure to check the links in the description below. I run a variety of workshops out of my studio here, and those workshops have a variety of themes. So it makes sure that not only do you get beautiful photos, but you get the type of education that will help you in your photography and your business. If you want to see the gear that was used in the making of this image, be sure to check out the links in the description below, and of course, visit adorama.com. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this photo deconstruction. Be sure to like, subscribe, share it with friends, because I have so many more videos just like this one, more photo deconstructions coming your way. See you next time, guys.